If you're in the right room, and you must be, or you wouldn't be here at the end of the day, right? We're going to start talking about the new kid in the sandbox. Now, I've done this talk. It's been updated twice now, but I started this about 6 months ago when they just got into the sandbox, right? Which is a pretty exciting thing for anybody that's in the CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, where all the observability software is. That's the first step on the way. So sandbox, incubation, graduated, right? Graduated, we're talking about things like Prometheus. We're talking about things like, what else we got in there? I didn't memorize them all. OpenTelemetry, funny enough, is not yet. They're at incubation level. FluentBit is also at the graduated level. The biggest question you get in the beginning is why? Why is this project even started? I don't know if you realize it, but this is the very first observability dashboard and visualization project in the CNCF. Isn't that weird? Of all the projects, and as long as it's been going on, if you've ever seen the landscape of all the stuff that's in there, no one's ever done this before. It's been sort of part of bits and pieces. Like if you go into Prometheus, you will find the ability to go to a console and to do some graphing and make it some data. That's not really how you want to put it into your production and how you want to visualize stuff. A lot of people were using Grafana. Funny enough, Grafana is not in the CNCF. Weird, huh? Most people don't really realize that, but that's what's going on there. And so the guys that are involved really closely initially with Prometheus stepped aside and said, okay, let's focus on metrics first and let's do this. Fully open source, Apache 2. The biggest thing and the most interesting thing really is an open specification for dashboards. So think about that a little bit. Are you developers here? Architects? We really like standards, right? Things that we can automate, CI/CD, things that we can generate code to a dashboard, stuff like that. Initial commit was in 2021. It's very young. It's version 0.50. I know they're trying to push out big changes all the time, right? It's pretty radical stuff in the beginning. But all the basics are there, right? And the focus is having an extendable, pluggable architecture for DAC, more acronyms. Dashboard as code. So we're going to see a link, and just last month here in London at KubeCon, 2 of the core maintainers presented Dashboard as a code with a live demo. You can go to a repository and see how that works. Very interesting stuff. Embeddable visualization, so being able to embed individual charts into whatever you want in your organization or whatever tool you're doing in your organization. Doesn't really matter, right? Don't need to do the whole dashboard. You can do just panels, individual pieces, one graph, one bar thing, one chart, one whatever. Makes it very lightweight, reusable, and if that's done as code, you can already imagine like the light bulbs going off in your head, right? How I can get some really cool shit done with this. GitOps friendly, because it's all dashboard as a code and things like that, it makes it very interesting to do a lot of GitOps stuff with this. A lot of automated testing, deployments out there automatically with dashboards and visualizations available for the individual components that you have out there. Really interesting stuff. Multi-language support says Q and Go. Go is the core one. Q in some areas of the project is also more extensive. It just depends upon what you're doing. Anybody here Q and Go programmers? Me neither. Nothing prevents you from doing this in another language. It's just those are the ones that they've gone heavy on. A lot of CLI automation. It's a really powerful tool that they have inside there. The command line tool is called PerCLI. Perse, but PerCLI. Allows you to import Grafana dashboards. It has a migration tool in it. It allows you to do dashboard as a code. It allows you to apply things. It allows you to get things out of it so you can get the specification out. Things like that. I thought this was kind of fun. I've left this in here because this is history. So when we get farther down the road, this is going to be stuff that you usually lose about a project, right? So this started, funny enough, with me talking to the core guy at the PromCon in Berlin. Hey, let's get this into the sandbox. What do we need to do that? What are you missing? Let's look at the different things we got to do. So we talked about that way back in September 2023. I put together a whole Google Doc and kind of gave it to him and said, hey, here you go. This is the stuff that I can find that are easy to fill in. Just need you to go into, it's a Git PR kind of request you have to do in a form in there. And it took them a little while to get this stuff together, and they kicked it off in the second week of August. And it was pretty fun to watch because it doesn't usually happen that fast. There's only certain people allowed to vote, but anybody that has a GitHub account can go in there and like it and put a smiley face and all that stuff on it. And it went bonkers. And like within 2 weeks, it was was accepted into the thing, which is really kind of fun to watch. You can go back and look at that. So dashboard as a code, I'm just going to touch on it. You see you can do this in your IDE. You can generate code. You're using basically libraries to start designing what you want to appear, and it's going to generate out into the spec. Pretty straightforward, right? Not that hard to get your head around. And then you can see here that this file, dashboard go, show the JSON, and that's what you got, right? So going from a Go file to JSON. In CI/CD, you see that it's quite easy to use all the different command line tooling to pump this stuff around and to do whatever you want. You can do a preview. This is kind of fun for the developer stuff, right? So I'm developing my code, I'm generating the JSON, and then I'm previewing it on an instance that I have. Whether it's local, whether it's somewhere else, doesn't matter. When you do that with this tool, it also knows to put like a timer on it, and it'll just delete them automatically later, so you don't have to go back and clean this stuff up. It's basically going out there and putting it on the server, so you're just piling on all these dashboards out there into projects. You can see diffs between what's out there deployed already and what you're working on. You can tell the developers wrote this, right? This is fun stuff. And then you have linting, which is a way to check the specification to make sure nothing's wrong before you send it out, right? So it's all very easy stuff to integrate into CI/CD. This one here, these are online right now under my website, Schabell.org, so you don't need to worry about this stuff. You'll be able to follow up on it. You can also find my Twitter, my Blue Sky, my Mastodon, whatever. Just Google around on my name and you'll find my stuff. I'll be posting all this stuff up there. This has got a link onto it. You can also just go to the URL, order the code, try to make it as easy as possible. This is the talk they did. He does go, unfortunately, kind of quickly through the hands-on demo, because I think the guy from CoreLogic is one of the core guys that works on this stuff. It's so fascinating. I was watching him do it, and I basically just dropped out into the Git repo and started looking at what they put together, right? It's got an awful lot of stuff in there. It's too much to run inside the session. Unfortunately, nowadays, all these talks are half hour. You used to get 45 minutes or more, right? There's almost no place that does that anymore, so you don't have time to do these extensive demos. So he sped it up and did it really quickly. So go ahead and watch it, maybe slow it down to half speed, and you can follow along with that. It's really good. Here's an example of like an embedded visualization. And right now, this is partially broken, partially working, because they released the new plugin architecture to do this. And there's a couple things that he's got in the PR, the guy that maintains this demo. This is an example of a JavaScript somewhere out there in his in the wild. It's a GitHub repo that's just deploying that project in the GitHub repo on the page. You can go look at it and you can see the embedded stuff and play with it inside there to show you that it works. And he's working on right now getting the newest plugin architecture to work. There's one PR he has to do because something's broken. So when you go look at it right now today, unless they've merged it, it's got a couple things that are broken, but most of it's working. It's quite interesting to see. And then you get to the API, the command line tool. It's exposing a create, read, update, and delete API, so you can do whatever you want with it. You can see it online. Here's an example of me using a browser embedded API thing. I can't remember which one this is. But you go to that thing and you can like submit stuff and get responses and see all the JSON and all that kind of stuff. So everything you're doing with the command line tool, everything you're doing in CI/CD, everything you just saw with dashboard as a code can also be done here in the browser just to check it if you want to have some fun or see something interesting. And then here you see with the command line interface, you can go get projects on an instance. It shows you how long it's been out there. You can delete some dashboard. You can apply a file. So you see a JSON dashboard, and now my dashboard's been added, and I can go view it. Describe the data source inside here after I figured out what data sources are available. You can go see what data source it is, where it's coming from, local host, and all that stuff. Pretty straightforward, right? Nothing hocus pocusy. And then we're going to look at it a little bit here in a while, but I thought it'd be kind of fun to just kind of walk through and see what it looks like, get a feel for what it looks like, see it up close. All these things work. When you go in there, the very first time, and you're going to see at the end, I'm going to give you a workshop to do this all by yourself. Go ahead and build it from zero to whatever. You can build it from source. You can do it in a container on your own laptop. Initially, it was just using the specifications. You were building by hobbying in the JSON. And then later came the UI, right? So now the UI, you can do this all you don't need to do in the JSON. First thing it asks you for, what are we going to add? Give it a name. Tell me which group is one of the rows that you've defined in your dashboard. You can put some kind of description. That's for the pop-up. And then you have a type. And I don't think this one of them will show you all the different types that is available. There's all kinds of different things you can make. In this case, we're doing a stat chart. You see there's an embedded preview browser that includes command line completion, just like you would find in the console on Prometheus. So whatever you're allowed to query on that specific data source that you've selected, that's part of your project, might be a list of 3 or 4. You start typing this out and you can see the results right away. Before you've done anything, you see what's going to come out. And then you see when you go to settings, so at the bottom there you have 3 tabs, query settings and the JSON, so you can actually see the specification being created as you're doing this for this specific component. And if you look at the settings, you see there's all different kinds of drop downs to adjust stuff, changing colors, thresholds, all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Everything you would expect to find. Here's a gauge chart where you see like a gauge, tachometer kind of thing. Same idea. Here you see an example of what the colors look like. You can pick whatever you want. So far, still, one of the things that's in the to-do list, you can't name the thresholds. So you get the feeling, you see how young it is. There's still stuff not done yet. If that's your hobby, go put it in, right? Lots of chances to do some fun stuff. And you see you can make some pretty complicated things. Multiple queries can be run to do a time series chart where you see multiple lines, multiple instances being queried. You can follow things inside your... Is anybody here using any kind of observability like this within their daily job? Most DevOps guys are sort of required by their platform engineering team to, use all this stuff and instrument things, and it generates stuff, and you can go look at it. Whether you do or not, I'm not. When I was an app dev, I didn't look at it too much either, to be really honest. But this is the cool stuff you can do. And you also notice this is very clean. So everybody knows Grafana, everybody knows all the stuff that's behind that. This time around, they get to make decisions and do it from scratch, so they're doing a lot of stuff that's much cleaner, much more modern, much more performant, whatever you want to call it, right? They're doing their best to do that. Here you see Markdown. Markdown means I can do docs. It's pretty normal, and what I'm showing you is also examples of what you're going to build in the workshop. So one of the things you would do if you're part of a developer team that's doing services or something, you have your own services you own, you have your own dashboards to look at those things. You might carry the beeper once in a while, or somebody in your team's carrying the beeper once in a while. So when you're on call, it's nice to come in and say, oh, shit, yeah. If you see this, then go to this doc. If you're going to this, do this playbook. Call this person. Open this ticket. Do whatever the deal is. Pretty straightforward. You can do even more complicated stuff like multiple gauges. See here, we're querying a bunch of stuff and just kind of putting them all together and adding more confusion into your life. Maybe. And you see the percentages can be done instead of the decimal units or whatever you want. You can make it as pure, as fine as you want. It's all tweakable. A table, selecting here just all the running instances. So you can see whether they're up or down. It's just kind of a silly query, but fun you can do. By default in the workshop, I always configure the local host version. So if you run your own Prometheus instance locally, that's something you can plug into and query. I'll show you when we're playing with the demo environment that they have multiple instances running. One is on a node, one is on the alert manager, and one is on Prometheus itself. If you flip between those using the variables at the top, you're going to see the different things change. Some of them fail because they're only querying Prometheus and not querying the alert manager, that kind of thing. So some general settings have been added to this one where you can do compact, standard, comfortable, all kinds of stuff, and you end up with what's up there at the top. You can also do it in bar chart format. Whatever makes your boat float, right? Lots of different things. Tracing. This is an interesting story. So this is a great example. You see how young it is. Most of the stuff that's being contributed is being contributed by people that are scratching their itch, as we like to say inside of the open source world, right? If I'm making the point to learn how to commit, to get into this system, to create a PR and all this kind of stuff, this here is from Red Hat. 2 guys I know over there are working on OpenShift, and they have tracing inside of OpenShift, and they replaced whatever they were using before with this. And they are unfortunately using tempo trace query. That's a Grafana query language, is what's inside their tool. So that's what they support, which is weird when it's a CNCF project, right? You'd expect that it's open telemetry protocol, right? It's coming, it's on the wish list, it's just nobody's done that yet. This is the first one that got donated. It works, so that's the option you get right now. That's the only thing that's covered in the tracing, all right? But you get various tracing options, a Gantt chart, a trace table, or a scatter chart, right? Looks really familiar, eh? It just happens to be what they're using. This is just to prove it's real. It's in OpenShift. When I initially did this, they were just getting ready to release it, so they were like secretly giving me these screenshots for this stuff. Pretty sharp, right? So if you use OpenShift at all, you should be able to find this in there somewhere. Not sure exactly where, apparently under traces, under observe, whatever. This is an example within my company. We use, we're originally, and you'll see, I always think it's kind of fun, especially when it's this young, to get an idea who's contributed and kind of showcase those developers a little bit. So you'll see an overview of that. A bunch of people at Chronosphere started this. It basically came about when Grafana changed their license on the Grafana dashboard stuff, which meant that anybody using that in a vendor tool had to contribute everything back, which means that ties into all your code in your code base, and that becomes a problem for most companies. So they sat down, and Amadeus was another one, CoreLogic was another one. That's all the initial committers and stuff that were in this project. Put their heads together and started doing this project, right, to have a completely open source version of it. At one point in time, Chronosphere decided to move on and take their fork with them. Not a fork, but I mean to take their version with them and just heads down. We're a smaller company, right? We don't have enough time to do that cycle like Red Hat does all the time where you can contribute back and mess with all those projects. And here you see a rather licked version of what's going on, and we do have OTLP for the traces and stuff like that. Just can't get my CTO to give it back yet. I keep trying. But you see here, here's a dashboard with tracing and all that kind of stuff involved in it with services and metrics and all that. And there's the Trace Explorer. So you can see there's a lot of possibilities, right? I mean, it really doesn't matter what you're doing. You just got to expand it a little bit. We could take it for a spin a little bit here. They have an online demo, Perses.dev, and I'm going to drop out of here and got a few minutes so I can show you that. So here. All right. So as you can see, you can log in with your GitHub or with your Google, or you can create some username. This is, I believe, a containerized version, and I see they did the 0.5 or 0.51. Sorry. You can see what version they're on, the latest. They deploy this container just to give you a playground to play in, and a lot of people poke around in it, so it's a little messy. I'm just going to use the Google because I think that's what I did already. You see that? That's pretty good, right? You're going to see there's a gazillion things in here that are a bunch of garbage. Perses is the you see here on the right. I've been poking around in it. If you want to use the command line interface to interact with this thing, you can. There's a command for that, and it'll ask you to log in. It'll do it in the console. It'll ask for your Google credentials, so you need to have a Google account. That's no problem. You can authorize that. I did that in the past, and I put my workshop project in there. So if we jump over here and look at that, it's not the user I'm logged in with now, so I can't do anything with it, because right now it's failing on, this just happened to me today. This got renamed to take the DO out of there. So my workshop right now is a little bit off. Don't worry, within a couple of days I'll fix that. It's just a matter of me going through and fixing the data sources. It's standard default demo servers they have running with a bunch of stuff going 24 hours. Otherwise your dashboards look really sad, right? So if we go back here, so you can actually use this to import stuff and that, but I do want to warn you, man, this thing can get restarted, and when it gets restarted, it gets wiped. It's down to nothing, just the Perses original stuff. And we can take a look at that here. And here you see a much more extended version of all kinds of interesting stuff you can do with this. And you see that you can also, this is with the node one. Well, they only have 2 data sources. They used to have like 5 or 6 of them in there. So you can see that the demo Prometheus IO, that's the new server name that they did. So feel free to poke around in here. This is just fun and games, and you can build whatever you want. You can go back in here, and you can say, hey, I want to add a new project. And we'll call it UK. And now let's add a dashboard. So you guys are missing the pub. And then in here, let's get started. And add a panel. And let's do a bar chart because they're pretty. And you see it's command line completion. And if we just execute that query, we get everything. Can also do a job. Let's do Grafana, Prometheus. If you do that one, you only get one, which would be a really stupid bar chart, right? But we can do that. You get the idea, right? And if you've never used it before, just play around in here, have fun. It really doesn't matter. We can add this. There you go. You can resize it if you want to. And you can move it around. And we're all done and happy. We'll save it, and there you go. Yeah. And you may want to look at the JSON of this thing. And if it's big enough there, we see the name of it. And you see everything is panels, plugins, queries, layouts, items. Everything's very standardized. So you can already get a feel here that like the CI/CD is going to be easy. And if I have a coding library that generates this stuff, that ain't that hard either. So somebody should go out there and do this in Java so we have a real language. Right? Okay. Go back here. Slideshow. Let's see what we got next. This way. This is kind of fun. I only do this because, I mean, pretty soon it's going to get so massive and so many people it's really hard to cover. This is basically all the people down to doing six accepted commits. You see that there's Chronosphere spread all over in there. They were all over it, but Amadeus is definitely the lead development team right now. I do believe, and don't quote me on this, I know they're recording this, but I think we're talking like tens of thousands of dashboards that they manipulate with this thing. So they do it across their whole org, I mean, at massive scale. They're really good at this. Who else we got in there? Red Hat's kind of climbing the ranks, Cloudflare's involved. Some people I don't know where they're at because they have kind of a funky email address in there for their commits, so it's like hidden email addresses. Yeah, it's just kind of fun, right? One guy's from Japan there at the bottom. Good stuff. And this is what you're going to build if you do the workshop that I'm going to show you in just a second. So from absolutely nothing, actually you start with the very first one at the top. I think it's one of these things. Is what you start with. And you saw when I showed you on there, on my old import, it was broken. But we can fix that. So the demo, that thing's all going to change. All I got to do is fix the data sources and everything's good. So bear with me for a couple days and I'll have that fixed. And here you go. Perses Workshop. I think it's like 7 labs. So you go from what is this stuff, the background. Basically, you've already attended this session, you skip the first lab. The second one is you can either install it from source, or you can install it in a container, or you can use the demo environment that I just showed you. And if we have a few minutes, I think we do, I'll really quickly show you the source version built on my machine too, and what I put in there already. This is fun. All the different links and stuff in here, the Perses code repository, the community dashboard collection that they're starting to put together is one of the wish lists. Imagine if you had a standard Kubernetes dashboard you could just pull in, right? Standard thing in for pulling, for monitoring Prometheus, a standard thing for monitoring FluentBit, a standard thing for whatever, you know. Slack channel there, social media, they're all out there, the Dev Sandbox. The workshop, there's also a Prometheus workshop because it kind of closely tied, so if you can start up your own Prometheus instance, it's more fun to query your own stuff than to run around and query other stuff. KubeCon EU 25, that's the one I just showed you the picture of. I did this one on stage at PromCon earlier or late last year, so you can see that one too if you want to. And before we do the questions, I will show you what it looks like on the So it's basically the same thing you just saw, but what you can see here is I fixed them already. This is just a quick fix I did out in the hallway earlier this afternoon. If you go here, see everything breaks because it's a node. So this was focusing on a node installation. And then there's a third one that's focused on the alert manager, so it doesn't work on any of these things unless you do alert manager. It lets you show the flexibility using variables inside of your dashboards and stuff like that. It's part of the workshop. You'll hit that as you go through and learn about that stuff. Okay, now are there any questions? I think we tied it up right at the right time. Yes, we got 5 minutes for questions or head to the pub early.
Obviously, it's version 0.5.
Yes.
Would you consider this tool good for evaluation, but not ready for production yet?
The funny part is, like, I know Amadeus has got it in production. I know Red Hat has it in production. So, who am I to say? Apparently, somebody thinks it is. You know what I mean? I'd say give it a try. I also think mission critical tool. I mean, how broken is it if you're able to query, able to draw a dashboard? What are we talking about? It's not running. It's not taking down your clusters. It's not. You know what I mean? It's a visualization tool. Yeah. A lot of people think it's worth the risk. I mean, if you're an open source organization, comfortable with using open source, and it's not complicated. It really isn't. You know? And you'll see in the workshop, for example, if you really want to see it built from source code, I think that's a thing. And I've been in open source a long time. I used to hate it going to a project and I can't build it from source. They say, yo, just check it out and build it. Yeah, it doesn't work. Why? So I go through that pain to figure out what the deal is, put checks in to make sure your machine has the right pre-required stuff before you get to it, and I will guarantee your stuff should build. If it doesn't, let me know. Raise an issue and I'll tackle it or whatever. I used to do this for Windows, Linux, and Mac. I tend to do only Unix now because I have no way to test the Windows thing. So if you're a Windows user and want to test it, I usually include an init.bat, or I'll make a rough one for you. But I just have no way to test it, and I don't want to maintain that. So,
Another question.
yes,
Roadmap to publish.
absolutely. It's in the.
What's missing to get version 1.0?
Ooh. I'm not sure how far they're going to go before they say 1.0. I do know, if you've watched the Prometheus project, very slow, right? Very solid, very professional in how they move forward with the stuff. They're taking the same approach. These guys are part of the Prometheus team, several of them. So they are very consistent in how they do this. They do follow the CNCF committee way of working, and yeah. I don't know what all the exact checkboxes are for that, but there's a pretty big wish list. So, I mean, traces is not done. Logs are not in here at all yet. So these are examples of things. They want to do the community collection of dashboards. It'd be nice if they had a bunch of that. Community collection of plugins would be nice too, right?
Is the versioning up to yourselves, or does it only go to version 1 when you get promoted to out of the incubator?
I don't think the version number of the project has anything to do with the CNCF process. You apply when you think you're ready, and they do have some check boxes and stuff. Usually it involves like proper documentation. They'll do documentation review of your project. You know, are you usable? They're not going to do it. And a graduated one I know involves having actual customer references, like it's being used in production at scale.
That's my question. Have you got visibility of who's actually using it?
A little bit. Red Hat. Yeah, I mean, that's also a question of do they want to say it publicly, right? Chronosphere says it. Red Hat says it. Amadeus says it.
Just wondering if anyone's given you a clue as if they're migrating away from Grafana.
We hear that question a lot when we do these kind of talks, that's for sure.
I don't know, I'm not too involved in this sort of stuff, but from what I've read, the criticism of Grafana is the speed, isn't it, the rendering, in general.
That might be, I would choose not to comment on a recorded session on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not here to slag on a vendor, right? That's not what the point is here. This is an open source alternative. It's a growing project. It's super interesting. It's not that it's not complicated, but I mean, it's a very straightforward thing that's happening here, and I think it's super interesting. I devote my time to it, if I can. Yeah, anybody else? I do appreciate the questions. Sorry. I got fun stuff for the question askers. And if you don't like it, give it to somebody that does, one of your kids or something, football players. And if you got nothing else, hey, get to the pub, man. It's almost Friday. There's football on tonight, apparently. So, all right, thank you.